Welcome back to r/LegalAdvice, where we read surprisingly interesting stories that usually don't end in a cliffhanger. If you are new to my channel, please feel free to subscribe to join our awesome community, and without any further ado, let's dive right in. And the first one is titled "Landlord Shut Off Heat, Demanding $1,650 in cash by the end of today or we get evicted." But he's not our landlord, he's a man pretending to be our landlord. Okay, so first things first. Obviously, I should have gone to the police months ago, but if I did that, I wouldn't have such a wealth of evidence. We moved into a pretty rough neighborhood on the west side recently. As college students, this did not matter since a bus stop in front of our apartment takes us to and from class every day and the grocery store is a few blocks away. However, we started having problems immediately with our place. When we moved in at the beginning of August, we brought up some maintenance issues that needed to be fixed. There was a ceiling fan that did not work, a shelf that was crooked, our washing machine was not hooked up to the plumbing, and one of the bedroom windows now had a bullet hole and a wooden board over it. Obviously, these needed to be fixed, and our lease provides that the landlord has to pay for these repairs when the tenant gives written notice. Our landlord was out of town for a couple weeks, so we talked to the property broker who said to come to him for maintenance issues and the like. Our landlord never came back from out of town. Every time we have tried to contact him, it has been unsuccessful. Our broker maintains his role as the man who collects rent checks and does maintenance, even though his name is nowhere on the property's papers. I ended up needing to text and call him twice a day, every day for 3 weeks before he sent someone over to fix our washing machine. That was the first and last repair that was made to our building. More problems that arose shortly after. In September, the locks on the front and back gate were broken off by gangbangers who were now using the front and back porch as the center of their drug operation. Rats started climbing through the walls and into our apartment. Moreover, our neighbors got bed bugs. After several weeks of rat problems, an exterminator finally came. A few days later, there were more rats in the building, there was a drive-by on the building by a rival gang, and the bottom row of windows in the building got shot out. Rats were now running in freely through the basement windows. In October, we get a bill from People's Gas and Electric. The building owes them over $4,000 in debt for the gas bill. Our landlord knows nothing about it. The thermostat was not working. We noticed when we set it to 90 degrees, but the apartment was 40 degrees. We gently pulled on the thermostat and it disconnected. The wire that was plugged into it just goes behind the wall and into the closet in the hallway. It is not connected to anything. We called 311 and let the city know we did not have heat since we had been asking for heat from the man pretending to be our landlord for weeks. When they came out to inspect the building, they found every room in the building to be below the legal limit and turned on the heat themselves. The next day, our apartment was cold again. The man pretending to be our landlord left 5 voicemails on my phone within 12 hours demanding $1,500 in cash or we were not getting our heat back. He changes his demands to going to the bank with him, withdrawing $1,500 in cash and giving it to him in an envelope. We refused. The next day, October 10th, he pushes his way into our apartment, screams at us, threatens us with eviction, false police reports and false reports to the city. Then forces us to write him a check for $1,500 and leaves. We called our bank and cancelled the check the moment he left the building. We start talking about this guy more. Turns out he has been watching us for over a month. He would sit in his car down the block and wait for us all to leave to go to class and then would use keys to enter our apartment without telling us. We have come close to catching him a few times and once we caught him entering our apartment. Our friend was at our place playing video games. We all left except him and a minute later the man opened our back door. He entered our kitchen and ran out as soon as he saw our friend on the couch. He got in his car and drove away. It actually turns out the actual landlord is a fake name on the property and is just on several properties throughout the city, mostly in low-income neighborhoods. Turns out that the man's friend has called several people using the same number, pretending to be multiple people. He has claimed to be our actual landlord named Frank, a plumber, Larry, a maintenance man, Byron, and a painter, Bruce. We have seen him in person and he has introduced himself as a different person to everyone living in the building. Then, in November, the man finally cashed our check that he forced us to write last month. He's furious that we cancelled it. By now, we've had discussions with everyone else in our building about it and everyone is informed and has stopped payments to him. The man threatens us with eviction by tomorrow morning if we don't give him $1,650 by the end of today. We went to the police and submitted reports. They are charging him with electronic harassment and we have photos of the damages around the property that he won't fix. We have high definition video of the rats from 2 different cameras simultaneously. We have every voicemail, text, email saved and backed up. We have him explicitly threatening us over video and voicemail. We are not worried about getting evicted because we know he cannot do that, but we know that he has no problem entering our apartment and being confrontational. We have come to realize that this man is a cocaine addict based on his behavior and activity, and we are afraid that an electronic harassment claim with the police is not going to protect us from him if he shows up pissed and dusted. Our plumbing is overflowing now from the sinks and tub. He won't let us use any plumber except the guy who is calling himself Larry. Except the number that Larry uses is the same number that Bruce the painter uses and the number our landlord Frank uses as well. He's now aggressively calling us and leaving voicemails and texts telling us that we have to let him in to work on our pipes. We never contacted him and we don't trust that he's not going to bring the other man with him. So what do? Edit some notes about us as tenants. We always paid rent in full on the first of the month, allowed about 40 tour groups to view our apartment as he tried to remodel and sell the other units. Also, never caused any problems legally, never damaged any property or the building, locked in for a year lease. And users in the comments suggested you should talk to the administration at your school to help you find proper housing. Most schools have a person to talk to about finding housing and giving advice about where to find it. Or talk to a realtor. Or talk to friends at school. Seriously, talk to someone. These living conditions are terrible. There's no way they are going to improve. You are not going to fix this apartment building. I'm honestly surprised that it has not burned down yet with squatters in the basement and no heat. Get out ASAP before winter comes and you die in a fire, or die to a stray bullet, or die from being eaten by rats in your sleep. You overestimate the importance of being near a bus stop and a grocery store and underestimate the importance of not being dead. And guys, as you can tell, this landlord is obviously absolutely crazy. Maybe he has some sort of twisted multiple personality disorder, I'm not sure. However, how would you handle this situation if you were confronted with such an awful landlord? Also, before we move on to the next story, I would be super happy if you could post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video. It helps the channel out tremendously, thank you so much in advance. And the next one is an update to the landlord's story. Howdy, exciting news on our end. He just showed up at our apartment, we called 911 and they showed up before he could get away. He had his palm pressed flat to the peephole and was banging on the door as hard as he could. When the cops showed up, he and his accomplice tried to leave. I shit you not, he was in a disguise, glasses and a hat at night and parked a block away so we did not see his car. Here is where things start to get screwy. The cops did not ask either of them to provide any ID at any point and believed them every step of the way. They forced us to let them into our apartment, which the man then proceeded to rifle through and damage. He tore through our garbage, spreading it on the kitchen floor and started kicking our cabinets. I have the whole thing on cell phone video. I don't really feel like going into the details anymore, so here is a rundown of what happened over the next 15 minutes. First, he forced us to write him a check for $1,598. He denied having ever entered our apartment. He threatened us again with eviction. He went into every room in the apartment and searched them for contraband. He says he has photo and video evidence of us selling drugs to a lot of people who constantly come in and out of our apartment. For clarification, we are skinny-ass white kids living in the hood where gangbangers are shooting each other every week over turf. I definitely would never try to sell drugs around them. He is completely lying. The only person who ever comes over is our friend in the neighborhood who comes over to play video games and watch movies with us. Since clearly the cops are not going to give a crap if he's lying to their face and getting physically confrontational with me in front of them, what should I do now? We are talking to an attorney downtown now about representing us because we are trying to defend ourselves against the false police reports he promised us. We are also going to an apartment tomorrow to see if we would want to move in there. It is in Wicker Park and has a effing jacuzzi. Am I missing anything? And a user in the comments gave further advice saying, hope you are cancelling that second check as soon as possible if you have not done so already. I would definitely file a complaint with CPD about the cops who responded when you called. That is a bit ridiculous. Hopefully the new place in Wicker Park works out well for you guys. And guys, is it just me or did the police act really strange in this situation? Why the hell would they let this guy in the apartment if he's just pretending to be the landlord and has no proof? Has something similar ever happened to you? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is the final update to the outrageous landlord story. So, the property was foreclosed several months before we moved in. When the other tenants moved out, it was not because their lease was up or anything, they were squatting in a foreclosed building. He never told us this at any point and still has not told us. Our neighbors used some real estate connections they had through their parents to find out everything about the foreclosure, including the bank that owns the property. The bank that has no idea anyone is living here. The guy who is claiming to be the landlord used to own the place before it got foreclosed. Now he's renting out rooms to people and trying to get the money in cash from the tenants without the permission of the owner. The only reason that the police believed he was the current landlord was because the bank has not changed the locks on the front door. He proved he was the landlord to them by using his key on the front door, which is apparently enough even without ID, even when 911 is called, because this man is disguising himself and attempting to break in. We got a really good lawyer downtown who is helping us properly break lease just to cover any possible shred of legality that the situation holds and then taking us to court. He's a friend of my roommate's dad who is doing this at a very low rate as a favor. He's extremely generous and we are so thankful for him. I understand how sketchy it all sounds. I even find myself questioning what is going on. That is why we started recording it. We just finished sitting through 17 minutes of footage of them in our apartment tearing through our things. After letting it sit for a day, the footage is all the more insane. Last night I could not sleep because I was so effing terrified that they would just come back again. Our female roommate spent the night at a friend's apartment out of fear. We took all of the advice in the comments with a grain of salt. This is the internet after all. One person defended me perfectly, saying, I thought the whole thing with legal advice is that all posts must be treated as real, no matter how ridiculous they sound, because some people really are that thick. And well, we are that thick, we are incredibly stupid, and the severity of the situation is partly our fault. We let this continue on for too long. We got intimidated by this man early on and we are too confused and afraid to do anything about it. Besides, we did not know any better, we are all out-of-towners renting our first apartment. We have learned our lesson, believe me. Concerning proof, we lawyered up and he's having us restrict what we share with other people, especially online. I really want to provide some video clips so you guys can see the insanity that took place, but I want to clear it with him first. I will call him tomorrow when I get back from the court. I also have months of insane texts and voicemails saved that I want to share at this point, but again, I don't know if I should until I ask him. However, I've already posted pictures of the state of disrepair in the apartment, a photo of the rat from the surveillance footage, our plumbing issues and his car parked outside of our apartment right before he pushed his way into our place. I cannot post his name or any photos of him, so I know that it makes it harder to believe because of that. The biggest issue with it sounding sketchy is because it is sketchy. These men are constantly lying and changing their stories on us faster than we can keep up with it. They behave in extremely suspicious manners and are illegally renting the place out. They are just trying to cover their own tracks on this, and that includes changing their story constantly and trying to limit our information. They still claim to have videos and photos of us dealing drugs out of our apartment, which is absolutely baseless. That is the one thing they keep bringing up though. It is really strange. The previous tenants were the gangbangers in the neighborhood, however, there's no resemblance whatsoever. So we are moving out and into a much nicer, slightly larger place in Lakeview. Turns out you can live there for the same price as in a rat-infested, foreclosed slum. We will be out hopefully by the end of the week. So, thank you for the advice for those of you who honestly tried to help, and if you still don't believe it happened, I don't know how to prove it to you and I'm sorry. But I know it's real and I know that this experience is going to leave a long-lasting effect on me as a person. Besides, what am I getting out of this if it's fake? Attention? Seriously? It's a low-profile post on a niche sub under a throwaway account. And guys, you know, funnily enough, when I first read this, I was like, what the hell? LegalAdvice is not a niche sub. However, this was actually posted years ago when LegalAdvice only had around 10,000 subscribers, whereas now it has over 1 million. And still, at least to me, this story does not seem fake at all. What are your thoughts on this story? Do you think it could be fake? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled Georgia bought house with cash, did not sign anything related to HOA threatening to sue over non-payment of dues. My wife and I bought our house in cash, no mortgage, October of 2013. When finalizing the sale, I signed documents related to purchasing the house, and I don't think HOA covenants were part of the deal. I cannot find any in my copies of the paperwork. Turns out there is a HOA in my neighborhood that just sent me my first bill ever for over a year of delinquent dues, addressed to someone who does not even live here. And I'm wondering if they have a legal basis for collecting those dues if I did not sign a covenant agreement. I have already emailed them asking for a copy of any document showing that I agreed to be bound by any covenants when I bought the house. If they exist, I will pay what I owe, but do I need to be ready for a legal shitstorm if they cannot provide any proof? And a user in the comments suggested, check the title, HOAs are generally attached to the title. You do not have to agree to the HOA. If the property is governed by HOAs, then so are you. It goes with the property, not the owner. Runs with the land, if I remember correctly. Guys, imagine you have enough money to buy a house with cash and then suddenly realize after the purchase that the property is governed by an HOA. One of the top 5 horror moments I can imagine. And now an update to the HOA story. It has been a few months since I last heard from the HOA, and I see how much you guys like updates, so I figured I would let you know where things are now. I've had some back and forth with the property management company that runs the local HOA. After my initial email, they replied saying that they did not have a phone number on file for me and wanted to talk to me about the situation. I declined, requesting that the exchange go through email to keep a paper trail. They replied with this. First and foremost, I would just like to apologize for any miscommunications you have experienced. Just for a heads up, you will probably receive another letter by Monday, but no response is necessary as we have your email and are still researching this issue. I'm not sure if you are aware of this history we have had with this neighborhood. We started the property management with a local company who then sold the property to a national company, and within that national company we have had 5 different contacts in a very short period of time. I apologize for delay in getting you a final answer, but we are still trying and will hopefully have an answer for you soon. Sorry for the inconvenience. On April 1st I have not heard anything since, so I imagine the matter is closed. I sent a follow-up email today, which reminded me that you guys might like an update. And the next one is the final update to the HOA story. It is amazing how much you learn about real estate law when something like this lands in your lap. So the Spark Notes up to this point. Bought the house back in October 2013 with cash, signed closing documents with an attorney and everything. Paid for a title search and title insurance. February 2015, received bill for unpaid dues, contacted HOA and attorney about it. Attorney said no HOA, they have no standing. HOA said they were working on it, would contact soon, never heard anything definitive about it. Recently I received another bill for unpaid dues, so I contacted the HOA by phone and spoke with someone about it. I was told by the HOA rep that their map shows that my lot is a mandatory lot. So I contacted my attorney and asked for all the documentation as well as a legal opinion on the matter. It turns out my house is in a different phase of construction than most of the other houses, and that phase, per the deed, is not required to join the HOA unless a consent form is signed. From what I can tell, the form appears to be binding to everyone else who will ever own the property until the HOA is dissolved. But if such a form was ever signed by anyone before me, it was never recorded. So my attorney sent me his legal opinion on the matter and the relevant documentation. I then forwarded that via email to the HOA contact I was working with, as well as printed everything out. The entire email chain and legal documents, and sent it along with a letter to the HOA office via certified mail, demanding a response within 48 hours of receipt or the matter will be considered closed in my favor. Here is the letter. My name, my address, my phone, my email, to whom it may concern. I have been in contact with your office via email about the quarterly fees your office claims that I owe. When I purchased my house at address, I had a title search performed and it turned up nothing saying that I would be subjected to HOA fees. However, I have received 2 letters claiming that I owe HOA dues and that they are past due, the latest total being over $1,500. This letter and all attached documents are being sent to you as final notice that I'm not required to pay these fees. I contacted the attorney that closed on my property, firm name, and they provided me with documentation that supports my stance. If your office is in possession of any documentation that contradicts the findings of my attorney, please forward them to the office of attorney at attorney address immediately. Failure to remit documentation within 48 hours of receipt of this letter will be considered acceptance that no balance is owed by the owners of my address for HOA dues and that further attempts to collect will cease until the homeowners sign the required documentation agreeing to be bound by the optional HOA covenants. Your office has had months to settle this matter as I first contacted you in February via email, and frankly, I'm tired of waiting on you to provide documentation. Any further contact on this matter that is not either a letter agreeing that I do not owe any dues or documentation supporting that I owe dues will be considered harassment and I will be forced to explore my legal options. That letter and all attached documentation was mailed on the 14th to the HOA's PO box and was signed for the following Friday, and I have not heard anything from them at all. So at this point I think the matter is settled. If they continue to try and collect their dues, I will probably have to get the attorney that closed on the house to send a cease and desist and go from there. And guys, just to make sure, I actually contacted the OP of the story, and he said, in fact, the HOA did not get back to him, they did not try again to collect any dues, so yes, the matter is settled. And with that, we have reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's content, and if you did, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our amazing community. Furthermore, don't forget to go to r/ripestories on Reddit to post your own stories if you want me to read them out in a video. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I see you again tomorrow.